After spending 4 years working on Legends of Kalidasia, I have come to the conclusion there's a single universal truth that applies to every single tabletop game out there. And I'm going to share that with you in just a moment, so let's get started. Welcome to Beyond Kalidasia, the show that takes you behind the scenes of the space combat miniatures game Legends of Kalidasia. I'm Jason, the creator of the game. And I know, I've been away for a while, and there's a very good reason for that. And if you're subscribed to the Legends of Kalidasia mailing list, you already know what that reason is, and if not, well, you guys are all going to see what it is in just a little bit. But let's move on to the main topic of the show. And before I get started, I have a little bit of a homework assignment for you to do. It's really simple, and hopefully you're going to learn something from it. I want you to go down to your local tabletop game store that sells Warhammer 40,000, in particular, find the people who play the game, and ask them what they think of how Games Workshop is handling their Warhammer 40,000 game and the property, and what the heck. Why don't you ask other players in the store as well, even people who don't seem to know anything about Games Workshop or have never played their games. Why don't you go ahead and ask them what they think of Warhammer 40,000. And what you're going to get is literally a wide spectrum of answers, ranging from, oh, well, my particular faction needs this new type of unit, or I don't like this particular aspect of my faction, they need to fix it, or it's been too long since my faction's got an update, blah, blah, I don't like this rule, I don't like that rule, this new thing they just added is really cool. So what people are going to say is going to run pretty much the entire gambit. I bet the one thing you're probably not going to hear people say, though, is that everything is doing great. Literally, about the only person who ever says that is the CEO of the company, and maybe some other employees as well. But from a player perspective, there's always going to be something wrong. There's always going to be something any given player wants, whether it's practical or not. The reality that it comes down to is, in the case of Warhammer 40,000, everybody, even the people who never played the game, probably have an opinion on it. And as much as you might want to think that applies to only big game companies, it applies to all game companies. That's a single universal truth I was just talking about there in my little teaser intro. Everybody you encounter at a tabletop game convention, probably particular because us tabletop game guys tend to be very opinionated, is going to have an opinion about your particular game, even if we've never played it. We look at a game, we make a snap judgment about it, maybe we ask a few questions about it, and just based on the information, us as players, I do it all the time too, we make kind of just a snap judgment about the game, and we kind of decide this is what it is, and this is what our opinion is going to be about it. So the question is, as a game creator, how do you respond to this? Well, the first thing we're going to do is let's put these criticisms into several different categories. We're going to approach each of them differently. There's going to be the mechanics category. These are people talking about, well, I don't like this particular aspect of the game. Maybe you should try this new rule. Or maybe you want to add a new faction with these features, blah, 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 etc., etc. In the case of Legends of Kalidasia, everybody wants warships that can ram each other. I mean, I get every time, every convention, can I ram somebody? Like, no, you can't. There's reasons for that, and that goes off into understanding the physics of space combat, and that's a different topic altogether. But that's one category, the mechanics. People want to see changes in the rules, often to benefit their faction, or to penalize a faction they may have trouble fighting against, or maybe they just imagine your world and your game should work a certain way and they want mechanics to match it. There's going to be a product line question, we'll call it. Product line or game type. This category is going to be products that players want you to release. Now, it could be a new game, it could be a new expansion, it could be some new feature or support item to go along with a game, like terrain maybe, or more figures or different figures, or change this figure design, that kind of stuff. The third type of criticism we're going to get is going to be what I'm going to call the business criticism. This is talking about your business practices, maybe your marketing. You should go to this convention, go to that convention, make this video, make that video. You need to produce flyers. Can I help you distribute your game, etc., etc., etc. Or go put your game in a game store, do this, do that. They're business things that don't apply to how the game functions, what your product schedule release, just kind of their ideas of how you should get your game out there and how you should manage the business side of things. So, how do you respond to each of these types of criticisms? We'll go from easiest to hardest, because frankly, the easiest one's the mechanics one. Like I said, people suggest mechanics because often they want to see the game go in that direction, usually because it benefits how they play the game, let's face it. It's rarely people want to see stuff this really gets into a much deeper discussion of humanity and how they view justice among themselves and among other people. But more often than not, it's because they see something as a weakness in the game, something is unbalanced, usually because they feel it's unbalanced against them, etc., etc., etc. Now, this whole category is the easiest to deal with because why? You test the idea out. You can go back to your play testers, however it is. If you think an idea has merit, obviously there's going to be some really crazy ideas out there. And of course, people are going to submit literally complete opposite ideas, where person A's idea literally completely contradicts the person B's idea. And there's no way in heck you can possibly integrate both those ideas in the game. But the situation is very simple. Go ahead, take your idea back to the playtester, give it a try out. You don't have to tell the people you're doing the testing. Just go ahead and try it out, and if you like it, maybe find a way to integrate it into the game. If you don't like it, well, oh well, you've wasted a few hours of time at most. And even if you don't like the mechanic, there's a good likely chance you've learned something about how your game works, or maybe discover something new and possibly discover some other issue you need to tackle. So the mechanics ones are usually the easiest to address. When it comes to responding to product line suggestions and criticisms, first thing is consider who's making the suggestion. We're all entitled to our opinion. We're all going to probably say what our opinion is. I've kind of gone over that again and again. But not everyone is really qualified to give good advice. Especially when you start getting into the products and later on when we get into the business side of things. Once again, kind of like in the mechanic stuff, a lot of times when people suggest products, they're things they want you to produce because they think it would be cool. And it's quite possible it would be cool. And it's quite possible it would expand your game in really new, awesome ways. The problem, of course, you got to consider is how much is this product going to cost, and is it really worth my time and investment? And in the end, that's something only you and you alone as the creator of the game, and presumably at this point, if you're running a small game company, you're probably also the CEO, president, whatever title you want to give yourself, and it's up to you to make the decision if that seems financially viable. But also, while it's not a bad thing to consider every different request, look at who's making the request. There's people who have worked in this industry, and there's just people who have played games in the industry. Usually the people who have been in the industry in one form or another, obviously they have usually much more experience, especially on the business end. They kind of got an idea as to how much things cost versus, cost versus benefit, that kind of things. They're usually the people who you may want to listen to a little bit more when it comes to new products and new product categories, because they often have, like I said, the experience and a little bit more of the knowledge in terms of what's involved with making a product, versus just someone who plays games and doesn't really understand how much a figure costs versus this, that, all the financial side of things. Now moving on to the business decisions. Once again, this comes down to same kind of thing. Who's making the decision or who's making the suggestion? A lot of people, once again, a lot of the gamer crowd, the non-business side of people, want something because it's convenient for them or they think it's awesome. Oftentimes it's oh, why don't you come to my game store? Why don't you come to my convention that's local to me? Because, I like your game, I like your product. It makes you more accessible to them. Now, things like that may not necessarily be a bad thing by any means. Getting the game out there, more game stores, try to go to more game stores, more demo. Now, trying to get your game out there, go run more game demos, go to more conventions. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah, do some research first when people invite you to different game stores and different conventions. And try to figure out what the convention is actually like. Not every convention is suitable for every type of game. Some are focused on historical games, some like sci-fi, some are more RPG things. Some are like just Magic the Gathering fests, and you'll sit there for 5 hours and no one will really care about your tabletop miniatures game. It's the way things kind of work, So do some research. When it comes to the whole marketing thing, once again, this is you spending your business's money. And like we said before, it comes down to listen to the people who have done this before. And just because someone's done this before doesn't mean you necessarily need to do everything they have. I mean, they probably have some good ideas, and they probably also have done some things that have gone terribly wrong, and for whatever reason didn't work for them. Listen to all that stuff, and just listen and learn as much as you can, and do your best to try to figure out, from what the experience they're willing to share with you, what applies to your company in terms of how you want to manage your inventory, where you want to get your manufacturing done, how much inventory you want to have, things like that. And try to do your best to figure out what applies to your company. And now on this topic of criticism, there's one more important thing you got to work on and you got to be good at, no matter how hard it may seem. And that is, you can't get offended when someone says something bad about your game, about how your company works, about your product line, anything like that. It doesn't look very good, obviously, if you get angry and upset at people at a convention. That just looks bad. That's going to start bad rumors, bad who knows whatever on the internet, because bad stuff flies around the internet really in a hurry. But the thing to remember when it comes to tabletop gaming, it just applies to everything in life. People have what they've liked, and just because somebody doesn't like what you have to offer doesn't mean there's something wrong with it. When it comes to these negative, very critical suggestions, you can listen to them and possibly think about them. And if there's some way you can run some tests to see if there's some legitimacy to there, it's quite possible that these criticisms may help you improve your company, improve your product, etc., etc. But like I said, just because someone has something bad to say about your game doesn't mean there's something wrong with it. All that means is they don't like your game, or they don't like that style of game. That's perfectly fine. I could go on quite a while telling you about stories just of the tabletop space combat genre. This is not even tabletop miniatures, not even like board games. This is literally the tabletop space combat miniatures genre. How many different types of games out there, and how many people basically put themselves in one tiny little box. Like, people will only play large-scale fleet battles. People will only play games that take an hour. People will only play games that have some arbitrary level of what they perceive as real physics. So you can't let these people who have put themselves in these tiny little boxes work you up. It's going to look bad in your company. It's going to look bad on you. And you're just going to end up ticking people off, making them angry, and by a product, you're going to end up, or by proxy, end up making lots of other people angry and upset at you, and you just don't go down that road. Now, I'm going to be honest, this episode probably might have seemed kind of obvious to you, especially if you've been working on a game for a while, but if you've never really taken the time to create something of your very own and show it off to the world, you may have never thought about this kind of stuff before. And that's one of the things, that's kind of the, quote, dark side of creating something, is that once you release it to the world, everyone's going to have an opinion about it, and it's going to be a lot of bad stuff out there, a lot of interesting stuff, and a lot of just useless or irrelevant stuff. So hopefully this little discussion here gave you some pointers in terms of trying to sort out which bucket to put these various ideas you're going to get in. Oh, we're also going to get very angry comments, too. It's strange that people get angry over weird stuff, you know? I literally had, I think I might have mentioned before, but there was one time at convention, someone gave me what looked to be a very angry glare. I'm not sure if they're actually angry, but they did get a very angry glare at me because my game doesn't have pre-painted miniatures. Whatever. There's plenty of other space combat games out there that have pre-painted miniatures, and I think they are very good. Alright, so with that, if you have any questions or comments for me, send them over to kalidasiagames@gmail.com. That does go to my phone, which I don't know where it is today. It's sitting over here somewhere or another. And I can answer those on a future episode if you'd like me to. If you want to learn more about Legends of Kalidasia, check the game out, or download some free stuff like a free starter kit, free 3D models, you can head over to the game's website at kalidasia.com. And once again, I'm Jason. Have a good night, and thanks for watching.